Hey guys, it's Tony. Welcome to my shop. Today we've got a really interesting piece of wood. I've got this, let me pull up here and grab it. I've got this maple, and it's got a burl on it, which you guys are probably getting used to now, but check that out. We've got a big burl on this side, and a lot of interesting figure. It does have a crack. We've already put a little CA in, and a lot of ripple, just some beautiful figure up here near the top. I've already marked out my centers and kind of spun it up to see what we could spin on it if it's going to work. My plan is try to round it up for the bottom a little bit here, leave as much of this on the top as we can for a natural edge bowl. So we have burls on both sides, and we'll just kind of cut in around that and see if we can end up with an interesting art piece without losing too much of this cool figure on the side. So stick around, let's see what we can do. Okay, first things first. I've already marked out the centers, and I did a short little video on how I go about finding center in an odd piece like this that we'll post up a little before this even airs probably, so you can just kind of see my thought process. Not necessarily the only thought process or even the best thought process, but it is my thought process. So that's kind of where we're at here. So I have my centers marked. I had figured out I can get about, with this odd shape and out of balance, right around 750 RPM. Is kind of the starting point for this one. And I'm going to be hitting it with the 5/8 inch bowl gouge, the standard crown, the one from Hurricane that I normally use. Although, when I was rearranging everything yesterday, I put my big box of blanks here on top of my power cord. That's not going to work. All right, there we go. Let's see if we can get that box tucked back under there. This is my spalting box, and I needed a nice safe spot to keep it that was out of the way, and this seems to do the trick. So let's go ahead and start at 0 again. Make sure we spin clear of everything so we can go clear. Now we'll just kind of see where she goes. So I'll keep my hand up here on the lathe to feel for vibration. And you start to feel a little bit right around 600, and I can push through that a bit. So we're right at 700 right here with no vibration. And we went past that, you can really feel it. I'll swap out my ball cap for my face shield. Grab the 5/8 inch. And we'll take some nice, delicate, easy passes here on this edge. You can feel the air just coming off of it. So we want to kind of see where we're going to tip here. This wood's right around 12% right now. So it's not fully dry, but it's also not really green wood either anymore. And with that crack down the middle, we have a chance of it coming apart on us until we can get where we want to be. So what I'm doing right now is just trying to get a nice flat bottom. See where it's gonna, you can hear how hard it is, just listening to it there. It wants to take some liberties with me. So with that pull cut, I want to see what we're doing here. Tipping a little bit of a corner there, a little corner here. Now we're going to start touching into this burl on this end here. So we'll just keep that going. Just got to get that bottom flattened off first, and then we'll figure out how we want to do our tenon, or if we're going to do a recess on this one maybe. Okay. Rounding off, we're into that a little bit. Just want to see where we're going to get flat and what kind of look we can have. I'd really like to keep this just a little rounded on the edges and kind of flat on the bottom to kind of create that dramatic lift on the sides. But that's all we're going to go for on that. See if we can get in at a little better angle here. Make sure we're not getting too far into this yet. That's going to be interesting. That'll be interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of trips to the sharpener today. I'm doing my best to float the bevel instead of try to ride it because there's so much air there. We don't want all that chip out. So I'll come around the side here, make sure we're still clear. Looks good. Make sure we're nice and tight on the tailstock. You can hear it wanting to chip away, so we got to get really delicate cuts. So see how we're getting that chip out on the edges there as it comes around, but we are rounding up there. We're still missing this entirely and haven't really dug into this burl yet. So just want to see if we can come up, just get a little round, get rid of the major part of that crack that's been glued all the way across. And we'll see if my hands are going to hold up together today. Been having some issues. And I'm going to go ahead and put a quick edge on this too. It's already dull. Okay, with a nice fresh edge, we'll see if we have any better luck here. That's the second sharpening already. Real small passes. So still have a couple little cracks in there. You can see if we stay inside that line, we should look pretty good. So we'll go ahead and keep pulling around. The sooner I can get rid of all the sharp edges, the better will be for our for being able to pick up the speed a bit. And that's about where we're going to have to be. I'm going to be coming at it down, kind of downhill from up here, real slow. You saw a little couple pieces fly off there. So we're still clear of that, which is what we're looking for. So there we go. That's going to help us quite a bit with this turn. Yeah, all right. Here we go. Big tear out there. This is the stringy bark that's covering over the burl. So once we pick up our speed though, a lot of that, I even kind of like, that's a real interesting contrast. We're starting to get into that burl up there. That's a heck of a contrast though, huh? Let's see. I might have to get gotta be careful. Prickly burls. Clear, looks like. Might try smaller gouge. I think I've got a good height. That might just be a little high. Bring her down just a bit. Again, make sure that everything's clear. Definitely not traditional. A lot happier turn with the smaller gouge, which is a little surprising. Okay, we're going to end up having to fill that. What do you think? Should we fill that with some turquoise? Or kind of wait a little later in the game? We're almost past the round here, so we're going to hit our goal. Just starting to tip that, just the end of it there, which will still look pretty cool. We're going to leave this wide open. Okay, let's go ahead and finish cleaning off that top there. So I have the tool firmly anchored down here, and my hip is controlling the rest of it. Just trying to float it across and not try to ride that air. Let's see if we're round. Look at that figure. Got some chips up here from the burl coming out. But we're round, and we have just a teeny bit more to get out here before we stop and deal with all of our cracks for an embellishment, and then we'll get a couple of final cuts on it. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit more rounding on the bottom here, and then we'll move around and take that final pass up to the top. And again, I'm just using the small gouge. The big one was just taking too aggressive. See how that looks. Got our bevel. I'm still gonna have to come in now, and I really hate to lose that burl right there, but I'm gonna have to come in We still have to take care of that too. So let's take care of this first before we figure out how we want to go in and put our tenon on this. I was going to go for a recess, but I think we'll be better off with the tenon, a little more swoop to the bottom there. Small pass here. Move the tool rest in. Yep, we're up to where that'll flatten out. That gave us a pretty smooth cut, all things considered. That will leave it kind of a cool contrast, don't you think, with the open scar from the cut limb with this nice smooth polish. And of course I'll sand that really well afterwards. I feel like there might even be a nail or something in there. I can't figure that out yet. Let's see. Well, let's finish with our round here. Real gentle. Just gentle little passes. That should give us a good idea. Flat, smooth, that'll sand. Figure coming out. Still getting that tear out as we come around the air, which we will deal with that. Still have our burl there. Okay, it's time for us to establish a tenon on this. And my instinct is to go for our larger chuck. So let's see if it'll nibble away for us on this one or not. That sounds good. All I want right now is a nice flat bottom. A little bit of lift. Enough meat for a nice strong tenon. Big flat bottom. I want to put a little more round in that, but we will start to lose. We can only go up so far on that one. But I think it would look better with a little bit more drama from the bottom. Let's take a look there. You can hear the, okay, we got a little round there, that's nice. Still touching this, pulling into that. All of these burls now are going to be exposed a little bit. We'll still keep our good stuff on top. And it's definitely going to be a Sando Flex machine here for sure on this one. Okay, I'm going to take one more pass. And we're going to try to go all the way to the top this time, get rid of some of this air and wobble. You can see right here we've got some uneven cutting. As the air hits that, it's bouncing. So the other thing to do is to make sure that we're super tight here. All right, let's take that pass. Change my feet. So really, this is all about the feet at this point. We've got our burls exposed here. We've got some of that cool yellow spalting I've been getting in my maple. Do have some tear out and a bump right here that we're going to have to smooth out. And obviously a lot of tool lines as we get up to the top there with the air. Let's see if we can get a little more speed out of it now that we've got it round. Seeing if it'll... No, about 1,050 is as far as I can get that before it wants to shake up a bit. It's still very, very out of round. So if we can get one nice smooth pass, get rid of some of these tool lines, super smooth, then we can pull it off and start filling our cracks. I think that probably got rid of most of the tear out up here on the top. Got a little left, but the main lines are gone. That is going to require some sanding, just where we're at right here. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and stop, get out the X-Acto knife, and clean up that crack. And this one up here, this one's just going to get some CA in it. This one's not going to require anything else. And I'm going to put some wax around this so we don't stain the grain right here, because this is going to end up being a shellacked bowl. I'll look at it from the side here, where you're looking up here. And we're going to round this out up here quite a bit, because you can see where the burl comes. We will come in before we make our full dip. This crack is significant, but it's also tight. We got a lot of material here, and it's been filled with CA. I do like the way that looks quite a bit. And this ripple is going to be gorgeous once we get into the piece here. Again, this is going to just be an elaborate, ooh, that's ugly. That's some ugly tear out right there, but we can sandal flex that down. Okay, I think we are ready to go ahead and start with our glue up. So I'll start working on that and bring you right back. So to clean out a lot of these cracks, I use a craft knife or an X-Acto knife. This is not an X-Acto brand. I think this one is from one of those large kits from Joann's. And I'm just going to cut down past any loose fibers or tears, kind of define a nice clean edge. Because if we're going to fill this with anything pretty, I'm going to actually use pop glitter on this particular one here. And I'm going to use gold. A lot of that CA is still in there, so there'll be some intermittent stuff. We just want to make sure we have a clean line on the outside, so it looks much more intentional than if we were coming at it kind of haphazard with all the wood fibers left visible. And sometimes that's a good look, but it's not what I'm going for here. That one can be filled with some thin, and this one will also fill with some thin. So as I mentioned earlier, I like to use a little wax, and I have a little tin here that will not allow so this is just mineral oil and beeswax. I'm going to put it right up to the edge of the crack. Try not to get any in it, because this will prevent the CA from staining the grain around it. I got a little at the bottom of that crack there, so it may not stick all the way. But once we get that on like that, and then grab our medium CA, once we turn that off or wipe it down, it will not have stained the grain. So let's get it on top and let it soak into the hole itself, a little crack, and we'll just end up with a fine black line instead of an open crack that can keep growing. So a little of the magic schmutz up there, and then we're back to our big boy here. Now we could, the more I look at this, I don't know if color would really add a lot of value, but we do have this landing up here, so we have to block that off at least with a little bit of blue tape, so that the glue doesn't just run down onto this, because that's going to be a lot of heavy sanding, even with the Sandoflex, and we don't want to have to go through that headache. So I'm going to grab some blue tape, just standard painter's tape, this is the clean release stuff from Duck. Instead of duct, it's actual duct tape. Like quack, quack, totally different. And I'm going to go ahead, cover it right down to there. So you guys can see I kind of made a little dam. And the CA glue stops down there. So if we put some CA up in this top part in thin layers, but I also want to not have the grain stained. So let's go ahead and put a little up to the edges here. A little mineral oil and beeswax, so it doesn't end up staining our grain. And I'm going to go ahead and take my craft knife again, just make sure I don't have any in the actual crack. Clean out anything. We do have some older CA in here from the first patch on the blank itself before I cut it. And then we can put a little Starbond medium in there. A couple drops, let it settle in, and then I'll roll down the rest of this. Remember, I like to fill until it's quite a bit proud so I can scrape it off later. Let it settle. You saw a couple little air bubbles there. That's a good sign. We're not getting any run out down there. And I only do thin little layers at a time, right? Because you don't want it to stay gooey when you're dealing with it drying and turning. If it stays gooey inside, it splashes up on your face mask, makes a mess everywhere. I don't know from your angle if you guys can see how we're building up a little dam there It's filling up in there pretty good, but I can still see it's still wet inside the tape. Okay, we've got it nice and hardened in there now. Now this would have been a really cool candidate if I was into the big epoxy pours. Would have been a cool candidate to turn it around like this, then put it in a bowl, fill it full of epoxy. I just am sure that I would have ended up with a lot of bubbles because I don't have a vacuum chamber to deal with. Look at it from the side. We're almost all the way full there. Again, I keep making sure that we're drying between applications so we don't end up with goo. There, that's going to stay proud. And that's what we wanted. You guys see that up? Can you see that from your angle? Is that visible? I have a little crack up here that we can also go ahead and just put some in there. A little mineral oil, protect our grain. And then a little CA in the crack. And this is more aesthetics. I don't think it'll affect the stability. We're going for a very rustic looking piece anyway. So I'm not concerned about that look of having a crack. These are going to sand up beautifully. This is going to be very unique and interesting. I'm not going to fill those. We have the option of filling them up, like maybe up to there and leaving the top natural, but I think we'll just leave those as they are. All right, let's see if our tape is going to come off easy enough. There we are. We're still going to have our little blue there we're going to have to deal with, and all of that can be done with the Sandoflex, or a little hand sanding if it comes down to it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put the face shield back on, sharpen up, and take one final pass. Actually, we're still good. I'm going to take one final pass so we can get rid of the protruding glue. Real gentle. And that gives us a nice flat smooth there. Pretty smooth right there with minimal impact staining wise. Now we have to really decide on our base. If we like this kind of slight swoop shape, you can see it from this angle, or if we want to bring in a little bit more to come around. I don't think that, we'll hit a little of our crack maybe, but I think a little bit more drama on the bottom might be nice. But the only thing I'm worried about is I kind of like having this here, but we're gonna end up probably merging these two pieces together to give it that full look that I'm going for. So let's pull around this side. I just want a little more round drama down there, I think. Hopefully I'm making a good call. You guys let me know. Probably gonna have to sand that away. I'm gonna make the dreaded downhill cut here. See if I can get a good bevel. Same thing, still an anchor. Got the bevel good, and I just rock my hips around. Little shear cut, and it's going to show a couple steps here in the round, but I think that made a big difference. I think that looks a lot better. Yeah, that looks good. Look at how that knot now kind of pulls in all this. Really, I think that makes a good statement with that chatoyancy there. So let's just finish off that pass. I'm going to shear scrape this to blend these, and then we'll make one more pass that direction, and we'll be ready to sand the outside already. A lot faster than I was expecting. You guys look, I'm looking at the horizon, not at my cut. And I can watch that blend up, so I get rid of that little bump there. We have a nice flowing. That's a nice flowing cut. Now from here we can pick up that cut with a little bevel. Rotate my hips around. And just follow it all the way up nice and slow. Readjust my feet again. Find where the bevel is. You see two little tool lines there. And I think we'll be ready now to blend that with the 80 grit disc. Yeah, I like that a lot. I do not like this hard line though. That has to be blended away. And I think I could do that with the large gouge coming in from the opposite side. That looks pretty good from where my angle here. Come across over here. Just giving it a haircut. Only go one direction with that much air. And did we chew anything up? No, got a little staining here. We'll get rid of that with the sandpaper. That's nice. There you go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put you guys on turbo mode, and we'll sand out some of the tool lines and stuff with all this air. I'll be spinning it a lot faster than normal for sanding, but we'll use a 3-inch disc, 80 grit to start, move up through 400, and I'll just put that on time lapse. Well, you lucked out. Looks like I didn't turn the time lapse on when I started the sanding. So I've sanded it to 400. It's nice and smooth. No, there's a lot of stuff in the wood itself, but no tool marks left or anything. One thing I didn't finish before I put the finish on is I need to get down here and clean up the bottom and size the tenon. And for that we'll use Senor Pointy gouge, and we'll tighten that up real quick. And I'll get out my larger tenon sizing gauge. This is for the 60 millimeter small diameter, so we got plenty of room there. And then I'll clean up this bottom, sand it, and we'll put some finish on. Okay, nice flat bottom, tenon sized appropriately. So we'll go ahead and sand this bottom just a little bit by hand, and then we'll go ahead and put the finish on. So for that, I'm just going to grab some 220. We're in a pretty good spot already. Actually got some 320 here. Just need to get out the fine little scratches, but cut was really nice. And I did not turn on my dust collector. I should have turned on the dust collector, but I didn't. Because I can't talk when the dust collector's on. I can see a nice shiny reflection in that. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I'm going to use our standard shop shine, or shop grit to start with. And again, since we have all these odd sizes, we'll have to rub it in by hand, and then we'll get out the linen wheel to kind of buff it in. But we can take just a little bit on a towel and just start in on the spots close up here to the burl, so we don't end up ripping a finger. You can easily catch that bottom with the towel, but boy, I sure would not want to be up here when that thing's spinning. And I might, before we put the final finish on, I'll hit that with the Sandoflex, because that's That might be more difficult. Actually, it might. We'll see when we get to the top. It might be easier when we do it from the top. Now that I think about it. How did I think about it? But you can see this again is just an abrasive paste. This is not a polish, or it is. I guess it is a polish, but it's not our actual finish. It's an abrasive paste to get out all the 400 grit sanding swirls. And we also have some beeswax in it as well, so it gets in there and fills all the pores up. The dark color is from the pumice. It's an F2 pumice, which is the grit we're doing. So you just swirl it around in there. You can see how the chatoyancy just pops, even just a little bit of mineral oil and a abrasive on there. And these burls are going to be pretty. Again, this will be a unique piece. This isn't a traditional breakfast bowl. This is kind of a little centerpiece for a coffee table or something like that. And there we go. So we got it on the bottom there. Now I'm going to only use the towel while it's spinning on the bottom section there, because clearly if I get too far up, I'll catch a finger or something. And I'm going to move the banjo to the other side. In case something does catch, it'll just go down. But you should be able to see in the up there from your vantage point in YouTube land, you can see the shine come up over here on this section as we get in there. So that's as far as I can go with it spinning. And you can see the difference from my vantage point anyway. We're stopped right about here. Yeah, we stopped right around in here, and you can see the polish here versus that. This is nice and super shiny and a little duller up there. So what I'll do now is I'll take my standard cordless drill and a linen mop, and I will do the rest by hand. With each of these burls, and then our big fiddleback figure over here. And that is now ready for us to flip around and work on the other side. We will still take this to the buffing wheel at the very end, and we're going to get this ripple. It's going to look gorgeous. We'll hit it with the Sandoflex at up to 220 on that. Pull off all the little stray, I can't remember what they call that layer, but you can see here there's another layer of almost like paper between the bark and the burl that we'll be able to peel all that off with the Sandoflex. And I'll probably do that before we turn the inside so I can get all those edges done without worrying about catching them. But see this little paper bark here? It just kind of peels off, and then there's under that is more of this beautiful ripple right here. Really pretty. I know what you're thinking. Why isn't he just making another weird hollow form? And that's because I've already done that. I know it's a pain in the butt. I don't want to do it again. So let's make a funky bowl instead. All right, I'll get her flipped around and we'll be right back. Yeah, I've decided to use my HTC, the 125s. This is kind of my go-to on the stuff like this. Nice, heavy, has good clamping power. And we're going to put it on like we would any other bowl, even though it doesn't have a normal traditional shape on top. We could still small one up them jaws from the last jam chuck I had in there. But we'll still basically get it close to the tenon size we want, or close to, closed around where we're at, till we get just a slight grab. And then I bring up the tailstock, make sure we're centered on that dot. I loosen it a teeny bit, tighten this, give it a crank so that I get it. All of my centers are all lined up real nicely. So I will turn it way down to off, basically. Slowly bring the speed up. Put one hand up here on the lathe and just feel if we're getting, we're about 800 RPM. It feels pretty good. There's no vibration. So we'll set up to turn at that. Now we're going to want to take some very gentle passes, because as you see, we want to keep some of this burl out here. So we're going to try to do kind of a closed form on top. We'll come inside of that. If we're good, if we get lucky, we'll be able to do that. But we're going to try to, it's not going to be a hollow form, but it will be called a closed form. So we'll have a wider rim that'll dip in down to the base on that. It's just going to be an elaborate catch-all, to be honest, or a little interesting centerpiece. But first thing I want to do is notice here, this is almost the same height It's a little lower than this is higher. So we should be able to take some of that material before we start touching this burl, which is, I'd like to be able to keep some of this burl in the finished look. So we'll see how that turns out. Best laid plans of mice and men and whatnot. I want to see if anything caught on that click. We already clipped the top of that burl, so that'll be the outside edge of our bowl. That flattened out nice, so this is almost flat. You can see here we still have some little ways to go, but we'll pull that out to that spot rather than go down. It's beautiful burl though. Lighter turn. So I'm sure you guys can hear the air catch in there. You can see how much air we have on this side. We're cut into that burl where we want it to be. So we're going to slowly widen that out now, and then we'll come inside for the rest of the hollowing. That crack seems to be holding still, and we will know when it isn't. But there's so much beautiful burl here. I wish I could find a way to save some of that wood. It's cutting lovely. Just get in there, the small easy cuts. We're up on that burl. We're probably gonna have to go past that burl a little bit. Trying to see where we're gonna get to a nice round spot. We got a ways to go on the depth. Once we kind of establish our round, then we can work on the rest of it here. I'm gonna have to take another little pass from up here, which will be a bumpy pass. Okay, it's probably time to flip the camera on the other side. Getting most of the action, I think, from the top, as you can't see much of what's going on now, but you will be able to see how nice the wood's cutting and how beautiful the figure is over here on this quilted area. You got quilt on this side, burl on this side, and some interesting spalt on the other side. So let me, notice I still have a flat spot up here, so let me go ahead and clean off the rest of the top here, and then we'll move it around to the other side. We're nice and flat up here now. Get some nice character, something interesting going on up there. Beautiful wood on the inside. Okay, let's flip us around. All right, let's see if this angle will do it. See if you get anything. See, we've got the ripple all up in here, around this side, some spalt and burl, and then some more burl in here. So I think that's going to be pretty cool looking. We're going to come out to the edge of this burl. I think that's going to be our, probably, we might be able to go a little bit further. We'll play it by ear here. But a lot of air to turn, and that always makes for a more difficult and interesting challenge there. Well, that figure is a little tough to turn. We're starting to hit some hard knots. That's what's jumping us around, those little bird's eyes and stuff. That's kind of pretty. Trying to think though. Might need to come further out to really make this as pretty as I'm thinking. I don't know if a closed form with that odd shape will really be pretty. Let's take it out a bit more. Yeah, I can feel it. It's time to sharpen up. Okay, I got a couple of sharp edges now on the gouges, and we're going to just keep plugging away at it. A lot of this will probably be sped up in the video, I'm sure. unless something cool happens. So we're getting nice little shavings, but this is literally like turning a block of maple. I feel like I'm carving it, not turning it. But you can see how we're getting some unbelievable figure when we get a clean cut, and we're almost to a spot where it's getting round enough that we'll be able to take a bevel right and cut once we get further in. I still have quite a ways to go here. I'm not ready to lose my tailstock support yet, so I'm still just kind of working on what I can. I have a lot of concerns about losing my tailstock on this one. It feels like it could end up with a disastrous consequence without the tailstock. You know, worst happens is the bull flies off the lathe, but I would like to keep it in nice shape. This has been a fun turn, but very challenging, which it seems to be lately. That seems to be where I'm heading. I do nothing but the funky, weird, hard ones. I got to get back to just turning an easy win, huh? All right, see what we can do here. Got to be very mindful of this edge over here with the sharp burls. Let's see what we got. Lots of pretty figure. Lots of pretty figure. Okay, what do you think here? We still have to get past this, thin that out. I don't want to do that until, let's see where it is on the tool rest here. Right about here, okay. I don't want to do that until, or not do that without the tool rest. Getting our rim almost. Almost. Okay, we got into that burl, so now it's just straight down from there. Well, I don't know if I can keep our live center on much longer. See, it really wants to jump around. I haven't figured out exactly where it's going to catch me. Getting nice cuts. You see, that's where our crack is there. So now we got to be mindful of that. But I don't see any of the other cracks coming through. So that might have been all we have to deal with there. Okay, we probably have a solid inch tilt still to the bottom. I would just like to, whoa. Can't seem to get in there to get a good grab. Just want to peel away that our center here. You can tell it really wants to lose the bevel quick. Solid inch to the bottom still. That's going to be pretty dramatic. But you can see all that figure in the side here? That figure is what I'm excited about. Oh, there's a little instability in that knot. We might need to fill that. Okay, I think I'm just about as far as I can go with the tailstock. So I'm going to go ahead and peel away that little nub there, and then we'll pull it off of the pull the tailstock away. I'm sorry. Ah, boy, I'm a little exhausted. My hand's killing me. All that vibration and bouncing is not it's getting me. might be a little high still. But we'll be able to work that nub right off now. Okay, it's time to just bust that off, I think. Yeah, this is wow, what a hard piece of wood. I don't think I've ever turned maple quite this hard before. I think also a wee bit brittle. But you can see the shavings. You know, we're getting nice little curls. They're tearing at the end grain, but our finish on the long grain, I mean, that's almost ready to sand up here. This has got a little bit of tear out in it, but we're going to come back in on this to hollow that out. Now we still, like I said, we're an inch from our final thickness on the bottom. But to get it out of the way, the tailstock, so I can come in at the right angle and not be hitting the tailstock on my trips back and forth. A little risky, I'm going to be honest. I'm a little apprehensive that I can get a nice bevel riding cut in here multiple times and keep that thickness, but it shouldn't be any different than turning a live edge, standard live edge bowl, right? Nothing crazy or different about it. So let's set up and see if we can get a couple of good passes in here before I take a little break. All right, I'm going to push the camera a bit back, so you're not seeing nothing but my elbow. Hopefully that's a good spot there for you. I'll get the tailstock all the way out of the way. Should be getting closer. Got a lot more freedom to get in there. Yeah, there you go. So you still thin that out. That'll start to look way better. We can still take a little of that burl off, although it looks pretty cool. And I want the walls to be thinner than that. I'd like them to be about this thick up here. So we're going to have to go straight down from this height to take care of that one. So that's going to be my next goal, is to thin that wall down. Gently and slowly. See how that worked. Okay, get some good cuts there. That's pretty thick, but I think that's going to be a pretty nice look. If we can get that thickness all the way down, we'll get rid of some of that appearance of thinner, because you can see the depth changes here. We just got to keep that uniform, and it should be a real nice look. Okay, I'm going to take a little break, give my hands a rest, sharpen up my tools. I'll see you back in a bit. Okay, little break, a couple of sharp edges. Let's see if we can finish this one up here. I'm taking a really steep cut down the walls here so we can get in past this. And then I'm just rolling it over. We have that heavy figured grain here that's going to tear out until I start taking a specific pass to the bottom. You can see we're already filled over here with our CA. So I think this is going to be our final wall thickness up here. So now it's just a matter of bringing that all the way down. So now we'll start taking some more gentle passes in the middle, so we're not doing this big tear out, that straight in cut that just starts cutting as you get down to the bottom. We'll take some swooping passes, see if we can clean that up real quick as we head to the bottom. So we should see now much smoother. See all that tear out's pretty much gone until we get up to this corner. But the tear out where we're taking our slow finishing cut is gone. So we keep on those cuts. We should have a very easy sanding job now with all this highly figured wood. It's just a really simple cut of coming in with the handle a little low, slightly open flute, and just taking very small passes and making your full pass down, riding the bevel. That's the whole trick. Stay on that bevel, super fine cuts and very slow. So I'm keeping the tool elevated and slightly open and just bringing it around. So again, that's my method. I'm sure that there are many others. See if that got our wall down to the bottom. Do you have this other crack? This knot's getting a little rough. You can hear that knot that comes right through up out here on the outside. So we're gonna have to glue that now before we go any further. And like I said, this is like turning marble now. So I'm gonna go and just clean up some of this inside stuff. We'll do our glue ups or just our stabilizing and some crack stuff, and then we'll get to the finishing cuts. Oh, all that figure is so pretty. I'm curious if this would scrape. What do you think? Think this will scrape at all? If we get in there with a nice sharp scraper, think we can pull it off, or will all that, get the right spot, or will all that figure just want to tear? Hear the different densities of the wood there bouncing around, but it does scrape lovely. Look at that. A little bit of tear out right there. Start hitting these knots though and the punky stuff, and it's lights out for the scraper. I still have these dirty corners here, and running out of room down here, so I'm gonna have to be a little more judicious. We'll follow this curve around. We're almost to the maximum of that, so it's starting to pull us down this direction, or we're gonna end up with a funnel. See if that cleaned up that corner or not. Okay, that cleaned up our corner. So now we're just in the head to the middle here, but we can only go about a ½ an inch, so we don't have a lot of meat there to play with. See what that cut looks like. Whew. That's pretty nice. Nope. Yeah, I don't think I can get in deep enough to use the scraper on all of that, but it does tell us that it can be scraped, so that's a good sign. And maybe if we get a super sharp bevel on the small scraper, we can clean up that corner well enough to make that attractive. I'm gonna put a burr on that. But boy, that's a risky scrape. Let's put a burr on that and see what we get. Handle's elevated. I'm going to just touch it. It sure sounded good. There you go. It's all blended in pretty nice. There'll be some sanding still, obviously. Got a lot of little parts that want to move. Now we just got to finish cleaning that out. Nice sharp bowl gouge. Slowly, we still have some ridges here to deal with, but we're getting below that thing, and we still have about a 1/8 of an inch we can work with here, so that's good. Still have quite a bit to deal with here, but we're through these hard knots. We got nice clean cut on the knots on there, swoop down to the bottom. Feeling pretty good about that. I still feel like I'm gonna have to come in and dress this edge a little bit more after we put another sharp edge on that that scraper. I might do that before we finish the bottom. Yeah, needs an edge. So I'm gonna go over to the grinder. I'll be right back. Back from the grinder with a nice sharp burr on the scraper. We're just gonna try to blend that corner. I have to pull a light around here. Hold on. I need more light. Handle elevated. Super light passes. Oh, yeah, can breathe again. There you go. Got a little bit of tear out and all this heavy figure, but our knots are perfect, nice and flat. That is sand beautifully. Our figure is still here. We've got a uniform wall thickness throughout, maybe a teeny bit heavier on the base. And I can probably do one more dish out this direction to just take a little bit of material from right here. Trying to decide if that's worth it because we are really, really close. Aesthetically, I think it looks great. Don't know if taking that little extra material that will be useful, but there's a slight bump right here. So let's take this bump down to that center point, and I think that we'll call it good. Going to remove that little nib there, just underneath it. Slowly raise the handle. I think we're ready for our final little gluing and sanding now. That is a pretty interesting little beast there. All right, I know no one likes to watch sanding, so I'm going to go ahead and just get some glue in the little CA in this crack here where some stuff is busted out. All the other parts in here are pretty darn good, considering we've only scraped and bowl gouted. It's got a couple tool lines in here that are going to have to be worked out by hand, just as the bowl flexes near this crack. It's pretty stable, and these knots are nice and stable. So yeah, it'll be a little extra work here, but it's pretty much a almost flat bottom with slight dishing in here into a thickness here. So we're let me get out the ruler real quick here. Tell you exactly. So we are 1 centimeter thick, so about 3/8. Maybe a little over 3/8 there, and then our base thickness here is probably closer to 3/4. So we're almost double on the base thickness. We could take a little bit more material off, but then I think I'd lose when I turn it over to create the beaded foot and the shadow line. I don't think I want to give up that look on the outside. So I think that's where we're going to stop. All right, guys, I'll bring you back when we're ready to put some finish on it. All right, got the inside sanded a bit now, and it's time to do that live edge up here. So I've got the Sandaflex on here and my Texas Hula shirt. If you guys haven't followed Texas Hula, you guys got to check him out. The guy's a great turner, great personality, a lot of fun to watch. But so I got my Sandaflex, which of course Phil from Shady Acres has made famous, and I'm going to hit just all these little burl areas around the edge here just before we put any finish on them. I'm going to move the light around here. See, that peels off all of that thing and makes it nice and smooth on the edges there. Cleans that up real nice and makes it really smooth. All I have left is this section over here. Looks pretty cool. I have just that little section up here of glue that 180 is not taken off. So I'll hit it with a little 150 by hand. And when I've got smoothed out and unobtrusive, then I will go ahead and hit it with Sandaflex again so it's all uniform. But all in all, that works pretty darn good. Okay, for the inside of this one, I'm going to use Howard's Wax and Feed. Guess if I'm using the Sandaflex, I might as well, I just got Howard's everywhere. Might as well use a little Howard's too. So on maple, it soaks in so beautifully and just brings out the grain. And we'll still get it over to the buffing wheel, and I'll bring the wheel inside this after this has had a chance to cure up. But I like how Howard's really soaks in, fills a lot of stuff, and brings out all that really nice chatoyancy and the fanciness. Oh, let's see if we can salvage some of this from here. Like, see that burl in there, how pretty that is. So Howard's looks really great on this. It's an easy finish to apply, and since this piece is not gallery quality at all, it's definitely just kind of an interesting piece, to say the least. I only sanded the inside to 320. I actually went all the way to 400, then had to go back. I kept seeing stuff pop out. of the grain, and it seemed the more I sanded, the worse it got, not the better. So I just said, hey, 320 is where it looked the best, and the chatoyancy still pops really nicely there. So I'll put that little coat like that on, let that settle in, and before we buff it up. But I'm going to go on the outside too, around all of the areas, the live edge or natural edge, I guess. Ooh, that's an awful lot of that. What is wrong with me? So just kind of get it in there. We got to get in all the little nooks and crannies though, and there's plenty of them because it's all very natural edge. We just sando-flexed off all the bark. We have this beautiful ripple on the side over here, little pop. Got our knot, funny little knot hole, and then all the extra burls around the edges here too. So I'll just, like I said, I'll rub all that in, let it set up for a bit, and then I'll take it over to the Burl system. We'll buff that out. Let me know in the comments if you made it this far in this video, which I know that seems that the average person watches about the first 5 or 6 minutes of a lot of them, and I get, that handful of diehards that really like the project that make it to the end. But most people only make it 5 or 6 minutes. I was surprised. I was also surprised that like 90% of the views come from non-subscribers. So if you're watching this and you're enjoying the content, I'd sure appreciate the subscription. It really helps me out. And the comments and all that other stuff that makes YouTube what YouTube is also would be very grateful for that. After I made my first 1,000 subscribers, I've been so excited about that. I did it and hit my goal. I tried to do it my first year. And did it in about 10 months, 10 months, 2 weeks to be exact. No one's counting though. So it's kind of a big deal for me to get there. And I really appreciate you guys' support and your help. And even though every video's not been a winner, and sometimes I'm still learning how to do video production, how to do all of the editing, figuring out what people really want to see, not just what I think's interesting. Helps me out. I really appreciate the comments and the encouragement stuff. So this one, again, not going in a gallery, but it's kind of interesting, cool catch-all from an otherwise would have been a teeny little bowl with a little bit of figure in it, or a little burl cap we could use for something else maybe. But, well, let's let that dry up, and then we'll take it over the wheel, buff it up, and we'll come back and give you a final spin, let you take a look at it, see if we did okay. Thanks. Well, there she is. Definitely an oddball bowl again. Had one of those days, You work with the blanks you got, and you always can have a vision. But man, I guess it just goes to show it doesn't always turn out the way you envisioned at the beginning. Remember, my original plan was to leave that big section there, that knot right here. We were going to leave that with the burl hanging off it, but just looked so clunky and chunky. But as I started to thin it out, I really ended up with a very flat bottom. It's barely concave on the bottom and thin. From the side, it looks like a nice bowl, and it's very soft. It's got some beautiful figure and grain to look at, but all in all, I have to be honest, not my favorite thing I've turned. Kind of funky, kind of weird, but I think it's just the right size to hold wallet, watch, and keys by that front door. Anyway, guys, I sure appreciate you guys stopping by and joining me in the shop. Hope you enjoyed this, and maybe you learned something you can avoid making your own flat bottom, highly figured tea tray. Anyway, get out there and turn something. Have a great week.